right, we are live. Hello, 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 everyone out there, and hello to everybody in the chat. My name is C, and I'm the owner of CLM Custom Designs on Etsy as well as YouTube. And this is my segment from the ground up where I introduce you to all kind of new and upcoming entrepreneurs so that you know where you can shop at locally and get the same things that you can get from the big box stores. So, everybody out there, hopefully you have already hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss anything that is happening on my channel. We have today Tiffany King. Introduce yourself, Tiffany. Give us the name of your company.
Hi there, guys. Tiffany King here from Mahogany Queen Designs. Right now, I have an Etsy shop which I sell custom gifts, apparel, like I said, quite a few custom type things.
Absolutely. Now, you know, this is a girl after my own heart because I do customs. So I am feeling her pain. I am feeling everything she is doing. So this is going to be a great, great conversation. So tell us how you got into this space. Were you always crafting? Like, kind of tell us what led you to here.
Yeah, I've been a crafter pretty much my whole life. I've always been into something. I come from crafty people. My mom sews, my grandmother sews, my aunt sews. And so growing up, I was always kind of doing things that were, crafty and even around the house for the kids, making gifts and things like that. So I'm actually a CPA, an accountant by nature. So I've spent close to 30 years in the corporate environment.
Wow.
And as an accountant, that is one of the uncraftiest, I guess is the word, professions you could have. So on
Yeah,
my
that's
off
really
time,
not fun.
yeah, no, there wasn't a whole lot of creativity within that. And if you were creative, you wouldn't be there very long.
No,
So
that
um,
was jail
yeah,
time.
yeah, exactly. So I took, that my off time is where I would spend, kind of the crafting process is just an outlet for me. So,
Mhm.
like I said, I spent 30 years in corporate America. And I guess it was last June. Finally, I was like, I love my job. I love what I do, but I'm ready for a change. My husband had actually just left his job to pursue his company full time, his, self employment construction company. And, it was on my list of things to do, but we just kind of accelerated the time because we were in a position to be able to do that. And so my daughter was entering her senior year of high school. And so I got the ability to spend like the first 6 months of me not working after 30 years, just kind of spending time with her, with school, the senior pictures, the driver's license, all of that stuff. And, and it was great. Uh,
Nice.
then I woke up in January and was like, okay, January of this year, and said, all right, it's time for me to get it together. I got my break. I got my rest. What am I going to do? But I'd always known that I was going to do and have a business. The name Mahogany Queen Designs, I actually created that in 2019. I
Oh,
went out and I said, okay, eventually I'm going to have an Etsy shop. I'm going to have something that I'm going to do. But my job was so demanding and I was always just so busy and on the go that I said, I don't have the time to devote to it the attention that I knew that I would need to devote to it. So I just kind of let it sit there. And I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. It's one thing in college. I went to a historically Black university, Norfolk State, and I was a business major. They encourage entrepreneurship, and so always in the back of my head, I can't tell you how many business plans I've written since I
oh,
graduated for different little businesses here and
okay.
there that I always said I wanted to do something. So we were in a position. I said, you know what? Now's the time. I want to do this for me, because everything else was kind of like I did it because I had to, but now it's like, all right, I'm get to do something that I want to do. And so I kind of
Nice.
took that leap, and here
Nice.
I am, probably about 7 months later, 7 months
Okay.
into it.
Well, you are where we are all trying to be. We are trying to be out of the corporate world and into our own world. That's where we all would absolutely love to be. But I want to go back a little bit because you said something that I thought was like an aha moment. You said that you created that name in 2019.
Yes.
And even though you weren't prepared to go full on into business at that point, you knew that that's what you wanted to do. So you kind of staked the claim, like, okay, this is
Yep.
the name I know I'm gonna want. And I think that's important because it also keeps it fresh. You know what I mean? It's not it grounded you a little bit to say, okay, I've made a commitment to this. Here's my name. This is where I'm coming back to. So you were putting things in place so that when you got here, that you could kind of jump in. I think that is I
Oh
think that's
yeah,
awesome.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, back then I'd already been thinking about it. But again, like I said, I knew I didn't have the time, but I said, let me go ahead and get all the paperwork started. And it's not a big deal to do. It doesn't take a lot of money, but like you said, you stake your name and get it out there, especially when you see, names can come and go so quickly,
That's true.
and something you might come up with, you go to look for it and now it's gone again. And so I was like, oh,
Absolutely.
I love that. Let me go ahead and get that out there. And
Ooh.
when I get around to starting it, at least it'll be there.
Okay. So that is a nugget, people. If you are listening, that is a nugget. If you think somewhere along your journey you want to be an entrepreneur and you may not can do it right now, don't get yourself down. Don't get discouraged. Do what you can do now, which is go get that name. You know what I mean? Go make that license, whatever you need to do. But at least it is getting you started. It is getting your mindset going. So yeah, that is a nugget. I'll be sharing that with people. That was awesome, Tiffany. Okay, great. And you also can see that things aren't overnight, right? 2019, we are in 2022, almost 2023, right? Where you've now been able to implement that. But then, even if we take it back further, your thought process from even when you were in college saying, I will do it at some point. But, life happens, 30
Like,
years
right.
in a job that you got to work, before you can do it. So again, I love that because you never lost the spark for what you wanted to do. You never lost that mindset. You just had to wait till you got into a position. So I love that. Don't get discouraged. Things come in time. I absolutely love that. Okay, so fast forward, you're here. You decided, okay, now is the time. How did you know what type of business that you wanted to go into? How did you decide on that and land on that?
Well, I mean, I knew I wanted to do something crafty. I knew I wanted to create. And so, like I told you, I'd already been doing things for free for friends. I'm doing money cakes as gifts. I'm doing the epoxy glitter tumblers. And, again, anything that I saw, I'm like, ooh, I like that. I can do that. And I
Right.
would just start doing it. And so, when I started the business, I actually got serious about, like, okay, here's the time. This is what I'm going to do. I watched a lot of videos. I tried to do some research on what people might want. I also did stuff that I thought that maybe I would be good at.
Okay.
So like I started out because I'd already been doing the cups. Already been doing the tumblers, and I said, well, that's something easy that I can get started with. But the funny thing is, it still took me a while. So I told you, I woke up in January and I said, okay, I got to do this. I got to get started. I've had a long enough break. Let me get moving. It still took me another 2 or 3 months before I actually went live. Part of it because I'm like, all right, what am I going to sell? Let me get some things together and go through all the work that's involved in getting it set up. So, just watching and looking to see what people were interested in. We were talking a little bit before we started about the embroidery. That was
Mhm.
something that, I know how to sew. Like, I'm nowhere near how Marie is, but I know how to sew. Like I said, I probably picked up a sewing machine. My mom showed me at the age of 6, how to
Okay.
do basic stuff. And
Mhm.
so, I'm watching some videos and I see people, with the embroidery, and I'm like, oh, that looks kind of fun. Let me see. Because again, I'm also looking for something that I get enjoyment from. I don't want to just be doing stuff just to say I want to sell this. I want it to
Right.
be something that I truly enjoy making and giving to people. And I saw the embroidery and I said, well, let me see how this works. So I got a smaller machine and I had it for probably about 3 weeks before I realized I love it. This is too small for me for what I want to do. And so I ended up having to go and get a bigger one and stuff. So that was kind of one of the things I looked at. And, it just, the list just kept growing with, in terms of, things that I would see, or people would come to me and say, hey, can you make me this? That was, in all honesty, a lot of things came from, hey, I want this. I want to give somebody a gift. What can you think of? They love coffee, or they
Yeah.
love, they're a nurse, or this, that, and the other. So that kind of helped build, some of my listings and some of the things that I
Yeah.
create.
Yeah. And I say this all the time. Anybody who hears me, I talk about this all the time. I have one particular client that is always like, can you do this? Can you do it? I'm like, no, I can't do it. Yes, you can do it. And that is where you really find out just how good you are. Because like you said, if you're just making the cups, oh, that's easy. I can make the cups. I can make the cups. But when you really are a creative, you really want to see how far you can go and what you can do. And it takes that person to say, hey, I want this, try this, or or do that, and then it kind of pushes you even further. So I love that. I think everybody should have somebody in their life that stretches them like that. Otherwise, you'll kind of just stay in your own little
Yeah.
pocket. Yeah. And one thing about this business, you got to kind of stay on trend because Right
Yes.
now, people aren't really doing cups like they were doing back then. Like, we were talking about cups was big, everything. But nowadays, people aren't really doing cups like that. So you got to kind of stay on trend and keep developing and keep moving. And your clients who like that stuff will always come back to that. But then you're trying to gain new clients that like
Right.
stuff that's out there. So great. So tell me where the name Mahogany Queen came from. Like how?
Okay, so the main thing, in all honesty, so my last name is King, obviously. And so I'm like, well, I am the queen of this house. And I started just trying
Love
to do
it.
plays on words of kind of
Okay.
where I could take that, and obviously mahogany with the skin. And
Yeah.
it kind of came from there. That's really where it started, my last name.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Cool. I like it. Okay. Nice, nice, nice. Okay, so how long have you officially been on Etsy? Because I remember when you were getting your store together and you wanted to look perfect, and I ain't mad at you. You know what I mean? You get one chance to make a first impression, so you wanted to make sure it looks good, and I have to say that it definitely does look good. But
Thank you.
when did you actually go live?
I believe it was the end of February or early March. So, like I said, it took me a couple months. And like you said, the hang up was I felt like everything had to be perfect, which later on, if you ask me about one of the challenges, that is one of my challenges that I feel like everything has to be perfect. And so finally, my sister in law was like, you got to just do it. Just flip the switch. Okay.
Yeah,
And it
that's
just kind of, evolved from there and, just kind of build it up. And I'm still making changes to it. You're always growing. So getting that perfection idea and mentality, putting it away, it's difficult. And it was definitely difficult in the beginning when I started back in March.
okay, well that segues us right into some of the challenges. You talked about perfection, and this comes up over and over again because we are our own worst critics. The things that we see other people don't even see. They're like, "No, that shirt's horrible." And they're like, "Oh no, it's perfect." So people don't even see what we see. We are our own worst critics, like I said, but let's talk about some of those other challenges that you may have faced kind of along the way to this spot you're in now.
Well, yeah, the perfection one is definitely a big one because I've had a couple things where I'm devastated with the way something came out, and I show it to my husband, but he's a guy, and I'm kind of like, because he's like, it's fine, and I'm like, but you're a guy, so I don't know. But then he calls over my neighbor, who's a lady, and she's looking at it, and she's like, I don't know what's wrong with it, and so you kind of start to feel better. So that's been one of my biggest ones. My second biggest one is the fact that I enjoy what I do, and I've done this for a while and done it as gifts, changing the mindset from this is no longer a hobby to this is a business. And that's probably my number one. I think just making sure that I'm managing this as a business and not treating it so much as a hobby where I'm giving stuff away. Because, when I first started, and I still did a little bit, but when I first started, I'm giving away free gifts with, my orders. And I'm looking at after the, I'm an accountant, remember? So I
Yeah.
know how to calculate. I'm looking at it going, yikes, I didn't make any money off of this. And partly because I'm giving away stuff. So, granted, it was, my marketing, hey, to get people in the door, get people to
Course.
see, what I can do, that kind of thing. But eventually you got to cut it off. And so again, I need to make sure, and I still struggle with that, just making sure that this is a business, not a hobby. So just trying to balance that again, because I'm like, well, it's fun. I enjoy it. So how can it be business
Work. Yeah.
and work?
Yeah. And if your husband is anything like mine, and I think most husbands are like that, they are quick to be like, how much did you charge for that? Did you make any money off of that? They're always trying to, and it's like, no, I just enjoy doing it. It's fine. But yeah, so
And the head just starts shaking like, no.
yeah. I get how that can be a challenge. That's interesting. But that also speaks volumes to the fact that you are doing something that you love. And as a result of that, money becomes secondary to just the creative outlet and loving what you do. And I say that because people are always like, why don't you use dropship? Why don't you use because I love the process. I love the process of creating. And so if I give that away to somebody, I don't know what I would do. What would be my outlet then?
Right.
You know what I mean? So I love that you said that,
Exactly.
because not everybody understands that. They don't
Right,
understand that we
right. It's like you
actually
could spend
have to
all
do.
day just creating, and like
Yeah.
I don't get me wrong, I enjoyed my work before. I loved my job. I knew I wanted to be an accountant from sixth grade. So
Oh,
it
wow.
wasn't like I would do anything else other than that in the corporate world. I love that.
Right.
And I still enjoy it. I get to do it for my husband. I get to do a little bit for myself. But in terms of giving that feeling, that creative, like I said, creativity. I don't get that from there. So there's something missing. So, but this, I do get that creativity. So I noticed that, I may at my old job work 10 hours a day, on during certain times. And I realized that I could be doing the same thing here, 8 to 10 hours, but it feels different. Yeah, my body
Mhm.
feels it because I'm on my
Mhm.
feet and I wasn't on my feet before. But
Right.
mentally, it's a very different thing. My mind is just, it's much clearer. And so, right, it's really hard to say this is business when I feel like, oh, this is just, it's a relaxation technique.
Yes, yes, I agree with that. So funny you should say that because I had a very stressful day at work. And so my coworker was like, well, what are you going to do for the weekend? I was like, oh, I got a couple of vendor shows and I need to get ready for them. She said, girl, that sounds like more stress. I said, it's different though. It's different. It's not
Yeah.
like, it's not like this. So I totally understand what you mean when it's like, a stress reliever for sure, for sure. Okay. So we talked about some of the challenges, talk about some of the good things or the benefits that you have seen since you've taken on entrepreneurship. What
Well, I
does that
mean,
mean?
one, my time is my time. And for me, that is really the biggest thing because like I mentioned before, there were times um, over the last 20 plus years that I had what you would call a busy season. And so for 5 to 6 months, or actually as long as that, sporadically throughout the year, I literally couldn't do anything but work. And it was, my focus was just on work, getting that job done. And so now my time is exactly that. I control what I do. I still have to get better at that in terms of, some of the things that I'm doing, but I control that. So that's probably been one of the best things. And then again, like I said, the creativity, just being able to kind of get up, even though, hey, we're in COVID, I was working from home for almost 2 years. So I was already at home, but being able to get up on my own time and do my thing, not have to log on to meetings nonstop and, talk to people and deal with people. I can just kind of go down to my workshop and what am I going to do today? What do I need to do today? Let's, kind of get that moving. And, one of the big things that probably, just the satisfaction, when those reviews come in, my heart races a little bit, but when the reviews come in and people, some of the sweetest things that people say, it's like I automatically just get a smile. And it's like, okay, so that 3 hours on my feet making that, getting frustrated because the bow didn't come out right,
Mhm.
it was worth it because that person appreciated, what I was doing for them. Whereas a lot of times, in demand, whereas
Right.
a lot of times people in corporate, they don't, you don't necessarily get that appreciation.
Mhm. Mhm.
You don't get the, and not that you're looking for that pat on the back, all the time, but it's just a very different feeling. Like I do a lot of stuff for brides, with their journals and hats and custom type stuff. And, my brides, I don't know what it is, something about them that I like to always do a little something special for. And they will send me the sweetest note saying, you just made my day. She treated me like I'm a VIP, that kind of thing. And it just makes you feel good.
Yeah, yeah. And that's why I always tell people you can't chase the money in this business. When you are good to people and you make them feel special, then they in turn will make you feel special. And that's kind of where you get
Yeah.
your reward at. Because initially in this business, you may not make a profit. You know what I mean? Between
Right.
everything you buy and you spend on materials and things like that, you're gonna probably be at a loss for a little bit, right? So
Yeah.
you can't be looking at it monetarily to say, where is the positivity in this. It's definitely going to have to come from the feeling you get from creating things,
Yep.
the feeling that you get from making other people happy, just that little special something. So yeah, I totally get that, for sure. So what type of growth? I guess you've been on Etsy now officially. What say like almost 6 months? Has it been
Yeah, yeah. So maybe like seven.
okay?
Oh man, it's changed quite a bit. I mean, from I think my first, I did pretty good. I got my first sale within maybe like a week or well, okay, my first non-family sale. Let's
Okay.
say that within maybe like 2 to 3 weeks. So my first month was
Mhm.
really low. Second month was low. But the trajectory has been, definitely growing. This past month, I think was probably October has been my best month because I had a huge uh, sale from a repeat customer that
Oh,
she ordered 14 gift boxes. Um,
okay.
and her first order was something big too. And so this has definitely been, I think this month I've doubled my sales from last month.
Nice.
And I do about, maybe I'm up to about 40 to 50 orders this month. And
Okay.
that's just the stuff on Etsy. So I do, like you, I'm sure, a lot of stuff outside of Etsy.
Right.
Some custom gifts and things like that, and then some corporate or business type things,
Mhm,
which are not
mhm.
necessarily my favorite. But yeah,
And tell
those
us
aren't my
why
favorite.
corporate is not your favorite, just because it's the same repetitive or what?
It's non-creative,
Oh,
because I'm taking someone else's vision already,
okay.
and it's a lot harder. I mean, usually with even when you're doing custom stuff, people have a vision, but they don't fully have it. And they come to you to help finish develop that vision. That's what I truly enjoy. When someone
Okay.
kind of just hands me something and says, I need you to do this. I'm like, okay. And
Yeah.
then, of course, there's always issues because then you're stressing out about, okay, they brought me their own materials and I don't want to mess with those. I'm trying to get away from that because I remember, I think Marie said in her segment not too long ago about people bringing their own fabric
Mhm,
and whatnot.
mhm.
I'm moving away from people bringing me their stuff to do because
Okay.
it adds so much more stress to the process. And I just don't have that creative joy that I have
Yeah.
otherwise.
Yeah. It is tough in the custom space because people do have a vision of what they want, and they think they know what it should go on, and they inevitably like you wanted something that can't even be put on this. So yeah, there is that level of anxiety that comes with it. And I've talked to many people and I'm like, I don't know how you do customs. Although I really like customs because I like to be able to take your vision and bring it to life. Because a lot of people like, I just want something like this. And then you create it. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's like exactly what I had in my mind. So to me, I love that. Or
Yeah,
they may just say, just go ahead and do it because I've trust you. You're repeat customers. Just kind of like,
right.
go ahead. So I love getting to know my clientele so that I can just say, hey, I think you're going to like this. Let me do it. And then I do it.
Yep.
And I'm like, absolutely. Or they may say they wanted a certain way, and I'll say, hey, I kind of went with a different fabric or a different whatever. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I love it. So I think that's for me part of what I love about custom. But you are right. When someone comes to you and says, I want it just this way, and you can never give it to them exactly the way they want it because it
Right,
just
right.
never happens like that.
Yeah,
And so
your two custom, the first, what you mentioned, that's what I love to do. Like I said, even if they already have a thought, you still have room to play with it. It's when you don't have that flexibility,
yeah.
those are the ones that I don't particularly care for.
Yeah. And I try for me to always have a consultation first because I kind of want to see what you think you want. And then I want to kind of bring you into reality of what you can actually have. And I like to do that because I'll tell them, okay, well, I can't do that. So if you can find someone to do that for you, that's great. But I kind of like to do that up front before I get into all the other stuff because I don't want to be in it and then have to tell you no. So I would definitely say for anyone who's getting in the custom space, that's something that they should always do. Have a consultation first. And then even after the consultation, give them a mock-up or show them something before you actually do it so they can say yeah or nay. Because once you do it, and they don't
It.
like it, you got
Oh,
to deal with it.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
the queen of mock-up. I am, I do a mock-up for almost everything. And, some people ask, well, why are you doing a mock-up? Because one, I don't want there to be any confusion or any, here's what it's going to look like. And so if you have any problems or want to change anything before we produced it, and I've wasted my time, my resources, let's
Yeah.
just take a picture of it and see, because I've had some where someone thought they wanted something and I put in a mock-up and I'm looking at it going, that's not going to work. And, I would kindly say to them, yeah, I don't know if this works. Here's a couple other options that might go. And they're like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't like that. You're right. Let's move towards this one. So
Yeah.
save
Yeah.
us both time and headache.
Absolutely. And I think that to me, that's part of our customer service. Like, I think that kind of is what makes us a little different because honestly, I don't think there's a lot of people out there providing services. A lot of people say, you want it like this, I'm gonna give it to you like this because the customer's always right. Well, that's not necessarily the case because if you know it's not gonna look good, I'm not gonna give somebody something that I know is not gonna look, even if they want it, I'm like,
Right.
I'm just not gonna do that. Because I don't want you to say CLM Custom Designs did this and it looked crazy.
Right. It's a reflection on us. Exactly. Because they're going to be
Absolutely.
showing
So,
their friends, oh, look at what this person made me. And they're going to look like, what is that? So,
yeah, yeah,
no.
yeah. So I think that that is part of us knowing our craft. That's why I tell people all the time you should do research. Be very knowledgeable about your product, your materials, what can be done on what, so that you can speak knowledgeable to people. And I think people appreciate that because they're like, oh, this
Mhm.
person really knows what they're talking about. You know what I mean? They're not just
Right.
taking stuff because you know that this market is oversaturated. I mean, it's people doing all kind of things, but so you got to kind of figure out what your niche is to make you
Right.
stand out from everybody else. And I know for me, I think it is my consultations and the time that I spend with my clients going back and forth to create that final product. For
Mhm.
me, what do you think in this space makes you kind of different from everybody else or unique from everybody else?
Well, I mean, I think you kind of hit it on the head there, right? Too the customer service that I provide. 'Cause like I said, I can't. All of my reviews are saying, she worked with me, she communicated back and forth. This person is great, and she gave me a great product. Because again, that's where the perfection comes into play somewhat.
Right,
That
right.
I'm not going to give you something that I'm not satisfied with. I refuse to do that. Now, yes, do I take it to extremes sometimes? Yeah. But at the same time, you're not going to get a product and say this looks like garbage, or you shouldn't.
Yeah,
Maybe an
yeah.
off day, don't know. But in general, I'm going to make sure
Sure.
that I'm happy with that. That it's something that if someone were to give me, that I would appreciate. That you could tell that someone took their time. And like I said, my biggest goal is just to make people happy. I think that yes, like you said, you can't chase the money in this business. Now, of course, you want to at least get your costs back and have some kind of profit.
Sure.
But my biggest thing is just making people happy. And I think that at least from what I hear from a lot of people, people on Etsy, people that I work with outside of Etsy, that's one thing that they come back and they're just like, you just hit it out the park. You just make us so happy, So that I think, my joy that I get from seeing them, I think, and they can feel that. I've had people say that. They're like, you could tell she was just excited about what we were doing as
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so that I think kind of spreads me out a little bit, passes my
Yeah.
name around a little bit. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you get repeat customers, then you know you're doing something right because what you want to
yeah,
do is retain your people. You don't want them to buy from you once and then end up on somebody else's shop, right?
right,
You want to retain that and you want them to say, hey, I know who to go to, like you said, and refer you to other people. And so I think that speaks volumes more so than you talking about how great you are. You know what I mean? You can say,
right,
I got all these reviews that indicate that I do well. And so I think that definitely is important in this business in terms of building that portfolio and building that up because it also builds trust. Because like you
yeah,
said, we're a dime a dozen. There's a bunch of us out there. So
right,
you want to, just like I asked you earlier, well, hey, who do you use to, do your embroideries? Because if you trust them, you've used them repeatedly, then hey, I can latch on to that versus like I told you, I tried someone and it wasn't the
right,
greatest
yep,
experience, right? So you want people to be able to lend your name out and so that's absolutely awesome. So you've now started and we talked about that now you're doing some embroidering and you're doing this and you're doing that. Where do you see yourself going now that you're in the space, you kind of got your feet wet, kind of what do you see happening to your business now?
A couple things. First, I'm trying to, you talked about finding that niche. I'm slowly finding different things that one, either I truly enjoy doing, and that people seem to like. So that's one thing. So I'm trying to narrow that focus down a little bit. So I'll probably be working more on that type of thing. And then so right now I'm in three different places in my house, right? I have a room in the basement, which was my craft room that, I've had for years. Well, actually, I stole it from my daughter. It was her
Okay.
playroom, and then she'll say that I took it. So I turned it into a craft room probably about 6, 7 years ago, or maybe even longer.
Okay.
And when I started the business, my inventory had to go somewhere. So I took over my living room and I have machinery in there. And then with the new engraving machine, that's outside.
Okay.
So I have all these different things in different places. So what we ended up doing, and it wasn't just for me, but I got to benefit from it. My husband was building a garage attachment. And so I got a second floor. And
Okay.
so in a few weeks, hopefully I'll be able to move everything in that one place and have a central location where I can
Wow.
really kind of focus my business and it'll be a separate entrance for my customers because I have
Okay.
customers that come to the house to pick things
Okay.
up. And
Okay.
right now they got to come through my house and, is
Oh,
the
yeah.
kitchen clean? Is everything
Right,
that
right.
kind of. So there's a separate entrance. So my plan is
Okay.
to kind of utilize that space more as a real business.
Okay.
And like I said, not just kind of operating all these different spaces. And I really like um, the other thing is not that long term, but it's more. I want to do an apparel line, but not anything crazy like I gotta have all these different clothes. Just more simple things, like my own name on hoodies and sweatshirts and t-shirts, and I would love to see that. So that's kind of where my focus has been somewhat, as much as possible
Yeah,
over
yeah,
the last
yeah.
couple of weeks, just trying to see, well, what could I do, or what would people buy? What would people be interested in seeing and wearing? Now most of my clothes I'm wearing are casual clothes, so that's why I kind of, the hoodies. That's what you see a lot of people now,
Yeah.
especially if they're not going
Yeah.
into the office a lot, then they're just
Right.
getting comfortable.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at doing that, and by having the embroidery machines and a lot of the stuff, I'm trying to capitalize and use all my equipment, so I at least in the beginning can do it all myself. Now,
Yes.
how long that will last, I don't know.
Depends on how
But,
big
at
you
least
get,
to get it
right?
out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's interesting. I think most people who are in the space that we are in terms of the do apparel, kind of think about that. I've been kind of thinking about that too. And it's funny. And it's because like I'll look at my Etsy store and I'm trying to move into my Shopify store. Thank you, Olivia, for helping me with that. And I look and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm all over the place. I got cups, I got towels, I got this, I got that. It's like, can I just narrow it down to like one simple thing? And I just like keep making that. And I just keep going back to that thought, keep going back to that thought. And it's like, yeah, can't I just do something simple like say hello on a shirt and like everybody buy hello?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because sometimes I think we overthink it, and
Yes.
recently some of the things I've been seeing recently have been just very simple
Yep.
sayings, like 2 words or just very, very simple. So sometimes I'm like, am I complicating this? Am I overthinking it? So yes, I definitely myself would like to get into that space where I'm just kind of doing one simple thing, a lot of it, just running production and just having it already pre-made, which would be
Yeah,
lovely.
exactly. Because it's not custom.
Yeah, not custom. Though I love custom, but just
Yes,
to
but
have
it's
something that
harder.
keeps producing when your custom is kind of running slow,
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
still kind of going. So yeah, I totally can appreciate that. And I know the work that goes into that, finding vendors, and that's a whole nother thing. Everything in these businesses is just about time. Everything takes a whole
Yeah.
lot of time. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I think, one of the things, because I laughed. I don't know who I was telling this, one of my neighbors, one of my friends. I said, I'm not even working, a traditional job right now, but I feel like I'm more busy than I was then. It's like the things
Right.
I want to get to, I can't get to. Like one of the big things that really, it's been on my list, I've been trying, is my social media, and
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know if the age factor's kicking in or what. I'm just like, how do you make a reel? What is
Girl, let me tell you, I can definitely relate to that. So what are you? Are you on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok? Where you at?
I am on both, not TikTok. Yeah, I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook. And the only
Okay.
reason I'm on Facebook is because it posts directly from Instagram. But
Right.
it's a challenge. It's a challenge to keep up with that stuff. I
I,
mean, because one, if you're always working, the two things in terms of time, you're always working trying to complete what you have, complete the orders. Is one, getting your marketing out there with social media, which is one of the simplest things to do. Just finding the time to do that. And then my other thing that I'm struggling with time is creating new things, because again my mind is always going, and I have a book and I have a list of all of these different things that I want to create, and to do it and see, okay, do people like this, do people not like it, and just finding the time to do that is just, it's insane.
it's rough. I tell you, and you buy the things, you're like, I'm buying this because I'm gonna do this. And they sit in the
Well,
corner.
I got everything.
What, or even, not even necessarily machines, but just like the products and it's like you get all the stuff and you look in the corner, it's like, I haven't even gotten to that. That is, I think, one of the big things that I struggle with. Like, I can't get to new things because when the orders come in, you got to make the orders. And
Exactly.
a lot of my repeat customers don't always give me a lot of time to make things. They're like, I need this
Yep.
in like 2 days. And I'm like, oh yeah, you need
Well,
like 30 of these in 2 days. Oh, okay, right.
yeah.
So, you never, and I can't even tell you when's the last time I made something for me. I don't even know. So, because
Oh, I made myself a journal yesterday,
oh,
but
did
that's
you?
only because I had to make journals. I was making for my sister-in-laws, and so I made a group of them. So I had to put my name in there. So that's the only reason why I had it.
Well, good for you, because I cannot tell. It's so funny. Every time my husband comes down to my workspace in my craft room, sometimes he'll come down here and he always brings something to eat. He'll go, "Hand me a coaster." I'm like, "I don't have any coasters." He's like, "How is it that you don't have any coasters in this house? And you're constantly shipping coasters to everybody?" I'm like, "I don't even know." I literally almost bought coasters in the store, which is crazy. I had to stop myself. I'm like, "Carla, that's insane because you make coasters." Like, but I never get around to making myself anything because I'm constantly. So sometimes I'll be so upset and I'm like, I'm just taking a strike from crafting because I just want to do something for me. You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of important though, so you don't get burnt out, because you can totally get burnt out. So I think it's important to just grab some girlfriends and just have a crafting day for you and just do something for you that's fun, because it can get to the point where it's like, I'm not making nothing for nobody else because
Yep. I call it my PTO day. Like my husband will come in and he's like, "What are you doing? You just relaxing?" "Yes, I'm taking PTO today." Because you need a break.
Absolutely. It is just, it's crazy. Serena, don't be laughing that I don't have no coasters, because no, I don't have coasters. But I am going to get around to making them soon, hopefully. So yeah, that's great though. There's more things to look forward to. I love the fact that you said you have a journal, because sometimes something will hit you. It could be in the middle of the night. It could be while you're taking a bath. It could be wherever. I tend to keep a little book with me too, and I just jot things in them, when it pops into my head, and write it down. And I think that that's important. So you can always do it.
And you have to do it kind of at that moment, because if I'm not using a journal, I have my notes app on my phone. I have one, probably 2 or 3 giant notes where if I see something or I think about something, I'm like, let me just go jot it down because I won't remember. Or I'll take a picture even. I'll take a picture and try to, jog my memory. Sometimes if I'm going through and look and say, "Oh yeah, I wanted to do that," or "I thought that was a great idea. Let me try to see if I can either incorporate it or mimic it." Because our memories don't hold enough.
Ooh, now when you get to this age, anyway, it doesn't, trying to, like you said, learn the social media and do this and do that. That is very hard. You have a daughter, though, within the age range that probably knows all about social media. So she might be able to help you. But I tell you, it's been interesting with this whole YouTube thing and Instagram. And it's just like, oh my goodness, it's just always something. So I totally understand the social media. It's just not enough time for everything. And now you can post on Pinterest. I didn't even realize, like, I used to go on Pinterest to just see nice stuff. Now you can post on Pinterest. I'm like, good.
Yeah.
Everything is just social media. I mean, that's what you just have to use now.
Yeah. I mean, it's great. It is a great tool, but finding the time, if you're not someone that's sitting there actively using it constantly because we're working and doing stuff, sometimes it can be more frustrating trying to figure out how to get the stuff out there, at least in the way that you want to present it. But I think it's a great tool though. It's kind of like one of those necessary evil type things to get your business promoted.
I would definitely agree with that. I tend to, like, on long car rides when I'm in the car, that's when I tend to post things, like, since I'm in the car, let me just go ahead and post something and try to utilize that time at least to try to put something out there. I mean, it doesn't take a lot. You just want to remain visible. You want people to know that you're there. And especially for young people. I mean, that is how they are finding you. And I guess not even so much young anymore. Everybody is just on social media somewhere. So yeah, that's just kind of the way. And I mean, with COVID, that's how people were shopping. Everything was online, right? So I think it was beautiful for people like you and me, because it really encouraged us to start businesses at that time. So if COVID had any positive points, I would say it birthed a lot of small businesses, a lot of entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I agree.
People were home, they were shopping, they didn't, they wanted things to come to their home. And so it was great for, and it also kind of afforded us some time, because if you were working from home because of COVID, you could take your lunch break, or, you didn't have the travel time, and then you could dump that time into some, crafting or creativity. So it did have its positive points. So I guess we can say thank you to COVID for at least. We can definitely say that. So if I said, give me 3 really good tips for somebody who was starting their business, can you think of 3 really great tips.
Yeah. Um, you mentioned it earlier in some different things, but like research. So that was one of the things that I did early on, and I continue to do. I mean, you've got to continue to research, your craft, one, to learn about what it is you do. I mean, yeah, I've been doing the embroidery for a while, but at the same time, there's still tips and tricks and things. Like I want to do, somebody asked me, can you do a puff hat? Yeah, I think so, but I don't know exactly how to do it. So, you kind of watch. You want to always continue to do that research and, learn from things. And again, I don't think you ever stop doing that.
Yeah,
You don't want to stop doing that because, like you
right.
said, you got to keep up with the trends. You got to keep up with everything that's going on. As a small business owner, one of the things that I have seen, and it's a challenge, but you have to become a jack of all trades. Like we talked about the social media, you're running a business, so you have to do business, you have to do marketing, and so you've got to learn a little bit about all of that. And so a lot of times you may not necessarily know or to be exposed to it. So you got to learn to use your resources. And so like even when I was starting my Etsy shop, my sister-in-law had already had hers up for probably close to a year. So I was constantly hitting her. So what does this mean? And how do
Right.
you do this? Go to the people who have experience in
Mhm.
things that you don't necessarily have, and continue to do that as well. Those are probably two for sure, big things that I would give people advice on, and managing your time.
Right.
Because we all know that you can so easily spend so much time doing all the crafting that you kind of lose focus on some of the other things that probably need some attention paid
Yeah.
to.
And I'm actually going to take you back to your corporate world a little bit because I think this is important. And I never really talked to anybody about it that I've interviewed thus far. But since I'm talking to an accounting, I think it's a perfect time because that is the side of business that we have to give some attention to, right? It's just not selling
Absolutely.
stuff, it's not just creating stuff. But when you're talking about business, a very big aspect and very important aspect is to make sure that you have that side of it right because we got to file taxes every year.
Oh, yeah, because it'll come back to bite you. It'll come back to bite you first of all. But there's certain things you have to look into just from a corporate setting your company up. How you're setting it up, how you're establishing it. Keeping appropriate records. Just like you said, the tax filing aspects of it. You've got your sales tax piece. Like if you're on Etsy, you're great if that's all you're doing. If you're not, you're supposed to be charging sales tax. So there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes or that should be going on behind the scenes
Right.
that you know and again, it's hard as a small business owner, especially because you have to be the jack of all trades, and then if that's not your expertise, it
Mhm.
makes it even more complicated. So you have to either find someone who has that know-how and they can at least help you and point you in the right direction and say this is what you need to be doing, but don't lose sight of that aspect of it because it is a big part of
Yeah.
if this is a true business versus a hobby, it's a big aspect of your
Yeah,
business.
yeah. But yeah, I think that's important to keep records. And one thing I would say is you might want to keep records along the way because sometimes trying to recreate those at tax time is very, very hard. So maybe use an Excel spreadsheet or something, that you can use to keep track of that to make sure that you're doing that. And I love what you said about charging taxes because I tell you, with custom orders, it's a challenge sometimes because you can't always get them to buy off of Etsy because you don't have that. And then you give them a price and it's like, oh, did I include sales tax? And if you don't, then that means you're backing yourself off of the money that you earn because that sales tax has to come from somewhere.
You still have to pay it, right?
Yep.
Exactly. And so what I do is I have a spreadsheet, like my estimates or my invoice, and it automatically had. That's the best way for someone to do it. Just have it in there as a formula. It automatically will calculate, take that 6% and charge it on that subtotal. So find yourself a good Excel spreadsheet, very simple, it doesn't have to be complex, and just leave that formula in there. And so then, but you got to make sure that you're tracking it. So one thing, like I said, I didn't do too much outside of Etsy, but now I got a lot more going on within Etsy.
Right.
So I actually have a spreadsheet or folder where for my sales tax stuff. So every time I have something that I'm doing sales tax on, I stick it into that folder. So that way I don't have to look for it or think about, did I have
Mhm.
something I need to remit? That kind of
Yeah.
thing. And then, once it gets too big, then yeah, you probably want to start a spreadsheet to track it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's kind of how I do mine too, just in various folders. But yeah, I think that's important. Like I said, I hadn't really talked to anybody about that aspect of business, but it is important if you're going into business, you got to consider that side of it. And if that's not what you're good at, you need to find somebody or do your research and get good at it, because that's the quickest way to end your business before your business um, gets started. Now, one other thing I want to talk to you about is designs and logos, because in our space, right, we're using these designs and logos, and people don't always understand the legalities of those designs that you may be using. And a lot of times, and you may get it in your custom business. I want a Dallas Cowboy shirt. I want a Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'm like, no, I won't be doing that. Why? Everybody else is doing it. I'm like, yeah, I understand everybody else is doing it, but they got really good money to be able to pay the FBI when they come and confiscate all this stuff. But I think it's important to say that you have to have licenses for design that,
and that's why a lot of times I steer clear, like you said, I'd like to do my own designs anyway, so you steer clear of those, and some of those licenses can be super expensive. I mean, I was talking to someone the other day about I think a guy, up the street that I work with, he wanted me to help him with some custom shirts for a fraternity, and he was working with the fraternity themselves. And so he's doing all this work, going back and forth, back and forth. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, wait, you don't have the license, which was kind of weird because you're talking to him. You had to know he didn't have license, or this wasn't a temporary thing that you could have assigned. You're bringing it to him, but it's something that's real, that's out there, and they can be expensive. And so from a cost perspective, you're talking $5,000. I think I looked at one of the sororities, and they wanted, I believe, like $5,000, and I think some of the royalties. Yep. And so sometimes, so just think the tracking of it all, it's just not worth it. So like I said,
I think some people think that I'll be making it up when I say it. That's why I was like, I'm just gonna talk to somebody else about it, because people be like, nah, because everybody's doing it. I'm like, y'all just really think I'm out here lying to y'all? Like, I was just
no, it's a real thing. And again, every now and again you might do something. Like my little neighbor, he wanted a Sonic shirt, and I bought a little Sonic picture for, so I made that for him. But yes, technically you're not without, it's all copywritten. If it's copywritten, you have to get permissions, to use it.
It's not cheap, Disney, all of that. And I tell people, and I know of people where the FBI has rolled up in those black Escalades and literally have, wiped out the she shed, because after you make it, you want to post it, or other people are posting it because they're happy about what you made. And then the next thing you know, you'd be surprised because they lose a lot of money off of that. I mean, yes, they have a ton of money, let's be clear, but they still lose a lot of money. And I try to look at it like, if I took my time and I designed something special, we're talking about getting apparel lines and things like that. Do you really want someone to just start making your stuff and
using it, making money off of it? Exactly. And so, I mean, definitely I've used the resource, I can't think of what it's called, but the copyright place where you can actually look up, because even, which is surprising, certain phrases you have to even steer clear of. So I've gone out there and done, some research on a couple of things. And, I had one little bout with Etsy on one of my designs that they like put a flag on it because it was a quote from Coco Chanel, but I looked it up and it was not copywritten or anything. And so they ended up releasing it, but it was like, certain things they're serious about, and they're checking it
too, because I said in a description pop socket, and they were like, pop socket is licensed. And I mean, it wasn't it's just that I used the word in my description.
Because you used the word.
I just used the word in my description. They were like, take it down. I was like, no. So yeah, I mean, and the thing is, it's not a problem until it is, right? No, they're not going to get everybody. They're not going to get everybody, but they only need to get you. So it's kind of like,
right. And I'm concerned about me.
Yeah. Is it really worth it? And it's not even so much about the money piece. I just feel like you're taking somebody's creativity, and that's just this is not cool. It's just not cool. When you are a creative, you understand that, but people who want it, they don't understand it. So I want to speak to that. So everybody who thinks I'll be making this stuff up and I just don't want to make your stuff, that's not true. It is truly licensed, and unless you can pay to get me out of license in jail, then stop asking me to do those copyrighted.
I say orange is my favorite color, but I am not trying to wear it in a jumpsuit. You do.
No.
I say it all the time.
That is correct. That is correct. Do you have any absolute don'ts? Like maybe some things that you did that you wish you could go back or you didn't know at the time? You're like, don't do this. I've already tried it. Don't do this. Anything like that?
I wouldn't say absolute don'ts. One thing that I continue to learn from is making sure that when you are designing and making something, that you consider all the aspects. Because I think that a lot of times, I know for me, I get so gung ho and so excited about creating something that I don't think it all the way through in terms of what that's going to entail. And so, therefore, what's it going to cost me financially, time wise, all that. Perfect example, I had a tote bag, a custom tote bag. Someone wanted me to embroider for them. So I designed it. She had an idea. It was these beautiful flowers with all the pastels. And so I designed it in Canva, helped her come up with and she loved it. And so I sent it to my guy to, get the file, convert it to embroidery. And he comes back with the price. And I'm like, yeah, that's a lot more than what I wanted to
Normally pay
spend,
for
first of all.
design.
Yeah, and I got him to come down a little bit, but it wasn't even that. Then transfer it to the actual printing. And this is where I told you, it took 4.5 hours to actually embroider this one little tote bag that I did not charge her enough
I was
for.
going to say,
And it
you
was more
probably
of
gave her
just
the
my
price
time.
before you even thought through.
I did, because I didn't know what all was involved. So that's where I say the one thing that I'm trying to get better at is thinking it all the way through from the start to what's my end product before I'm giving people quotes, even my time, because when I developed it, I would have made it a lot simpler,
Yeah.
and and the time was probably the biggest issue, more so than the cost. So it's just more thinking those types of things through.
That's that
Other than that, I
excitement. Like,
haven't really come across. Yeah. It's like, oh, let's make it so pretty.
I get
Well,
it. I get it. I get it. Well, I have to say, I have loved this conversation. I have enjoyed it. Is there anything else you want to share with us that you haven't shared with us? Like, where can we find you? I had your ticker tape scrolling, but I think the comments have taken that over. So tell us where we can find you at on all these platforms and different things like that. Where can we find you?
okay, so on Etsy, and you can get to my Etsy page just by going to www.mahoganyqueendesigns.com. So that will take you directly there. My Instagram is at Mahogany Queen Designs. Yeah, at Mahogany Queen Designs. And Facebook is the same name. So you can see, some of the things that I've created. Again, I don't have nearly all of the things that I've done, because again, like I said, it's taken forever to kind of get that social media aspect up. But
Mhm.
check out the Etsy website, and like you said, I do custom. Those are some of my favorite things, and a lot of the things that are on my site I get from people coming to me outside of Etsy or even through Etsy saying, "This is what I want to do. Can you help?" And so I do a lot of developing, ideas from that way. So if there's something that people see or that they don't see, they're like, "Well, can you do it?" Well, so
Yes.
probably a good chance that I can do it. So, and if I can't, like you said, I'll tell you, no, this is not something that I dabble in.
Got
But
it.
check
All right,
out
awesome,
those
guys. So
sites.
you can find her Mahogany Queen Designs on all platforms. Check her out. If it's something you don't see that you want, talk to her about it. See if she can make it happen for you. I love this because I love networking. I love contacting people and being able to brainstorm and kind of bounce off of each other. So, of course, I love these segments. I want to thank everybody in the chat who helped this segment go along smoothly. I love the interchange with my people. So keep it up, keep it up, keep it up. Again, if you haven't already, like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Can say not enough about Tiffany. She is awesome. She's doing big things. I can't wait to check back in with you in a little bit after your shop has been open for a year and see that trajectory continue to go up, up, and up. And hopefully soon, one day soon, I'll be able to join you and say, I am no longer working for the man either. I'll be in charge of my own time. Hopefully one day. But again, thank you so much for spending this time with us. And we are going to sign off. But Tiffany, hold on for 1 second. I'm ending the broadcast.
Bye, everyone.